All right, good evening, everybody. It is Steve with Real Progressives. You know, when you look at a stereo system, you've got an EQ, right? The EQ has got a bunch of different levers for high, mids, lows, and you adjust these things to make the sound proper. I mean, it's not like just here's the sound, take it or leave it. The sound, you have an EQ, an equalizer, and you make the adjustments to make it right. You try it once, it's not right the first time, you move it, one of them up a little higher, try and change out the midtones, whatever. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, you adjust the tuning fork, you adjust the levels to make sure that you get the perfect sound. And this is not unlike the economy. This is not unlike the United States. It's not unlike our own personal lives. It's not unlike anything, except when we talk about debt, we talk about our debts and the, personal responsibility crowd and the, you know, politicians that try to make laws based on personal responsibility, and then the people that run around shaming people, telling them, well, I paid my debts. I made adjustments. I worked a second job to make sure that I followed through on my commitments. Well, I want to talk about some of the commitments that are not being made that are part of the adjustments that you expect when you think about committing to a long-term debt. Now, I'm just going to use a couple instances and then I'm going to zero in on the one that I want to talk about tonight. For example, when you bought a house back in the day, I'm talking about just maybe 15 years ago even, you bought that house with the expectation that it was going to appreciate in value. You had a real estate agent telling you how great the market was and there was no time like the present to purchase a home. They were saying you're going to be hitting a lot of stiff competition. You might want to overbid a little bit to try and get the house that you want. And lo and behold, the market crashes. Why did it crash? Well, because people didn't do what they said they were going to do. Because there was a lot of bullshit going on behind the scenes. Because there was a lot of fraud. And there you were, making a decision for your family with the right motives, the right intentions, the right desires to do right, not only by your family, but, hey, you're following the playbook, the book that everybody tells you you're supposed to follow. Same thing happens with college education. You go out there, everybody told you from day one, get a college degree. You need a degree to be successful in America. You've got to have a degree. If you don't have a degree, then your life is worthless. You're useless. You're going to be a second-tier person. You're never going to achieve what you could achieve. All this stuff is drilled into your head. So you go out there and you decide, I need to have more and more and more and more credentials because that's what I'm being told I have to do. Now, mind you, everybody's giving you misinformation. The colleges are giving you misinformation, telling you that their school and their alumni program is the greatest thing ever, and you will be guaranteed a job. You will have a job walking out after you've spent $100,000 for your grad school degree. They tell you this stuff. All the newspapers are out there pumping it. All the people in the hoi polloi tell you, oh, yeah, got to have a degree, but you got to have a degree from one of the Ivy League schools or from one of the bougie schools. Ultimately, you go out there, you work your ass off, you skip weddings, you skip kids' birthday parties, you miss Christmas, you miss everything. You miss your entire life taking tests, reading books, learning, only to find out that there are no jobs out there, no meaningful upward trajectory. And the reason why you would invest heavily in a college degree is because you believe, based on what the lies you've been told, that you will move up a ladder if you have these credentials. It is the thing that will unlock the glass door above. So you take on a mortgage worth of student debt. And you strike out into the world trying to make something of yourself. You realize all of a sudden that there are no jobs. There is no upward mobility except for a very few people that win the lottery. that maybe glad hand the right way, that maybe go out bowling with the right people, maybe go out drinking with the right people. But there are millions and millions of people like yourself that went out and got these degrees and are fighting for those 2 or 3 open positions. The ones they dangle out there to make you really believe that the system works for you, but in reality, you're still stuck in the same type of job you've been in for 20 years, no matter how many times you've tried to improve yourself, no matter how many gurus you've gone to try and help you reimagine who you are, reimagine your resume, reimagine everything about your life. No, the ladder stopped. Now it's just a cycling thing that you never quite get over the hump. The government has a lot to do with this. The government has created the student loan bubble. The government has created this problem by making student loans through the government non-dischargeable. They have allowed schools to jack the cost of school up so high based on the idea of easy credit to go to school. And the jobs aren't there. Oh, sure, there's gig economy jobs out there. And if you're really savvy, maybe you can start a business that's really profitable, and then you too can be part of the ruling class. But for the rest, that's not how it plays out. That is not the story of the 99%. That is the story of the 1% that make it. The 99, they don't have that. The government, by its very nature, is the creator of the market. It's the creator of the economy. Without the government setting regulation, without the government spending money into the economy, without the government doing these things, there is no work. And so when the government doesn't spend on this stuff, it leaves it to private industry, which private industry has no vested interest in seeing us at full employment. They don't. In fact, it goes counter to their business cycle, which is to, in fact, make sure that they have a profit. And the first thing to get chopped when a company is seeking profit is benefits and headcount. Now, I want you to think about this. It's a really important story because you hear people always saying, I paid my debts. Pay yours. Well, you took on this debt with a false promise. You took on this debt with a lie being sold to you, and yet you're the only one being held to the standard of pay your debts, maintain your integrity, work 7 jobs, do whatever you can do. Oh, and by the way, if you can't pay your student debt, we'll garnish your paycheck. We'll take your home. We'll put you in debtor prison. Now, I want you to think about how absolutely ridiculous and preposterous this is. Now, at some point in time, maybe it made sense because schools are private, some of them are very expensive, etc., and we wanted to allow people to go to school, so they made school loans available. But then they should have started realizing anyway, that they had created a situation where the cost of school was rising through the roof, and that people were taking on unsustainable levels of private debt to pay for degrees that didn't have jobs at the end of it. There should have been an adjustment on the EQ. That stereo should have been adjusted. The tuning fork should have been changed because it was out of sorts. It was in total dissonance. The expectations and the outcomes completely dissonant from one another. So an economy needs to be tweaked. An economy needs those levels adjusted. And when our economy is based on student loan debt that is non-dischargeable, in the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars for many people, something's very wrong. And this isn't about paying your debts back. This is about the ability to pay those debts is not there. It's not there. Your house is probably underwater because it hasn't appreciated like you thought it would when you bought it back in whenever. You don't have any equity. You don't have a pension anymore because pensions are so last generation. They didn't fight for them to keep it for us. So people are left going down a whitewater rapid without so much as an oar or a helmet. And they're heading for a waterfall with stones and rocks and boulders waiting for them to take their life. And that is a story of the American economy right now. It's the same thing with healthcare. You know, before the ACA, when I worked at Verizon, I remember being able to go to any doctor I wanted any time that I wanted, and I never had surprise bills. Never. I mean, like, never. I didn't worry about going to the dentist. I knew that it would be a copay of some sort, but it would be no big deal. I didn't worry about going to the doctor because I knew there'd be a copay, but it'd be minor. Now, I go in for surgery. I take out $1,000 loan to cover the stuff that is supposedly not going to be covered by my insurance company, only to find a bill for anesthesiologist of $1,000. $1,000 I didn't account for and may have chosen not to have that surgery had I known after they did all the insurance games that I was only going to have $1,000 to cover. Wrong. And ends up being $2,000 plus to cover. They say you've got to have blood work in order to get these biologic shots. We've got to make sure your thyroid works right. You've got to make sure your liver function, blah, blah, blah. So you go and you fast and you go get a couple pints or vials of blood taken. They send it off for testing. Before your test results come back, you get a bill for $1,000 for blood work. The system ain't working. That's wrong. Something's wrong with the EQ. The sound, it's all tenor, all treble, no bass. It's all about that bass, but they got it all treble. All of us low people in the bass section, not getting no love. It's all at the top, all those tenors, screeching like nails down a chalkboard. And here we are, what do we have? I'm afraid to go to the doctor, aren't you? What happens when an unexpected bill from some non-covered area, some bizarre thing about, oh, you haven't met your deductible here, and and by the way, that anesthesiologist, he's not in, in our network, so here's another $1,000 bill. Student loan, medical debt. I mean, folks, every single thing in our lives has gotten turned on its head. This completely out of tune. It's completely the incorrect tuning. And so the only responsible thing for a currency issuing government to do is to fix the knobs, to adjust the levels, to make the economy work for the people. Because right now, I think there's a lot of people out there think suicide's probably a better solution than trying to fight through the mountain of debt in front of them. I think there's some people out there that probably contemplate suicide on a daily basis because of it. Probably more often than daily. Probably it's more often that they're thinking about it than not thinking about it. That's no joke. When people open up, when they feel like you'll listen, when you look in the mirror and you ask yourself, how's this economy working for you? It doesn't take much to realize that might be you thinking about suicide. And it's all completely unnecessary. And people get worried about tone. I want you to understand something. Austerity is murder. And these games they're playing by pushing us all deep into unsustainable private debt is like handing a child a fully loaded weapon pointed to their head and saying, oh, by the way, don't shoot. Oh, here's where the trigger is, but don't push it. The economy is cruel and it's completely man-made. It's completely made to serve the 1%. I can assure you right now that if things don't change, it's going to be pitchforks, torches, or hangman's nooses, and lots of suicides. We're on a trajectory where there's not enough inflation to help debtors get out of their situations. There's not enough upward mobility and employment to get out of your situations. And there's not enough hours in the day to get out of your situations. And not everybody has the ability to just work harder, to work longer, to pick up a second, third, fourth job. So now what? Student debt is immoral. Student debt is one of the very important things that is strangling our economy right now. It is harming more families. More kids are leaving school before they're ever married, before they've ever had a child, etc., before they've even purchased a home, with more debt than many will ever dream of. And it's no wonder they won't be able to purchase a home because they can't afford to purchase a home. You know, all the talk of home ownership and, making banking accessible. In the absence of federal spending, we're left with only credit card debt and bank loans. That's it. That's what you've got to fix these maladies, and that is unsustainable. You take out a loan from a friend and then they tell you, hey, you're going to need to pay that back. You take out a loan from the bank. Hey, you're going to need to pay that back with interest. You go to a payday lender. You get your knees broke. You get your car repossessed. Now what? Folks, things like the Green New Deal, things like Medicare for All, things like paid family and medical leave, things like a federal job guarantee, all these things force an upward trajectory on those knobs, on that equalizer. And they bring about a more just and fair economy that allows people to stop sizing up the rafters in their basement and start thinking about how they can live a life of abundance and be a better family man and treat their kids better. Eliminating student debt doesn't just give people cash. It takes away a ball and chain. It takes away something catastrophic in their lives. The only way anyone can solve these problems is to understand where the problem starts, the wellspring from which all these problems begin. It's a policy decision at the federal level. See, we've been duped into believing we can't afford to do nice things. But we've left the burden on the people to survive, even as the government cuts. Never before in our entire existence as a nation have people been more strapped with private debt. Private debt is lethal in the levels at which it's in our economy today. Most people haven't got a prayer to pay this stuff back, and they've made bankruptcy laws even more difficult to navigate. The economy's going to come crashing down again. We're due for another recession because we never left the other recession. It's been the longest non-recovery since the great financial crisis. And the people, regular people, have been forced to bear the weight of that government ineptitude. And even worse, because of the gaslighting from those who know in power, many people within our movement, many people who should know better, still advocate for deficit reduction and paying down the debt. The incompetence may be unknown to them. Maybe they're unwittingly, unknowingly incompetent. But there are many out there who know better, but just straight up don't care because they're serving a different master. And that master loves seeing us strapped. You know, when you take away too much from the people, you destroy so many things. One of the most disgusting statements I've ever heard is, look at all these liberal arts degree college majors graduating and wondering why they can't find a job. Why can't they find a job? Why shouldn't we celebrate literature? Why shouldn't we celebrate liberal arts? Why shouldn't we celebrate just an existence, a society that values knowledge and values social benefits as opposed to just simply STEM or profit-driven industries? Why is it that the only way you measure someone's worth is by whether they're profitable to some business, whether they can make you give over your cash to them? That's the only way they have a right to succeed and live in this society? That's ridiculous. This isn't just capitalism. This is an extreme form of it known as neoliberalism. And for those people that don't understand what I'm talking about, think about what I'm saying. Rewatch this video. Share this video. Get other people to think about it through a different lens, because the equalizers on this stereo are completely out of whack. Completely out of whack. We have no employer of last resort for a federal job guarantee, so by default, the employer of last resort is the military. You want to end war? Sure you do. Until I tell you you need a federal job guarantee to offset all the young kids going out of high school and slipping over there into the military, picking up a gun and being fodder for the war machine. Sure, you're anti-war until you tell me you're for a $1,000 a month UBI instead of a living wage federal job guarantee. I don't believe a word of that. People that say that, I don't believe you're anti-war. Or else you just don't understand. And if you don't understand, it'd be good to raise your hand and say, I don't understand. Don't act proud and bold. For God's sakes, don't do that. Know your level and ask for help. Because I'm telling you right now, a whole lot of death is around the corner, folks. Things aren't getting better. They're getting worse. And it ain't all because of Donald Trump. He's just an easy target because he's got a bad comb over and tiny hands. But this problem's been around for a long time, and it's only gotten worse. Trump wasn't one of the guys that pushed for the banks to be bailed out and Wall Street to be bailed out and the people left in bad mortgages. That wasn't him. That was Obama. That was all of Obama's picks. Trump didn't repeal Glass-Steagall. No, that was Bill Clinton. Trump didn't vote to send us to Iraq. And again, neither did Bernie Sanders. Folks, it's time for us to be smarter than we are because we have blood on our hands. The economy is completely out of whack. And it's time we did something about it. It's time that we did something about it in a meaningful way and restructured society so that it stops serving capital and starts serving we the people. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Please become a monthly donor. Help us out here at Real Progressives. Please, if you have skills, please become a volunteer. If you want to learn more about the economy, please listen to our podcast. It's released every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's called Macro and Cheese. You can find it on the web at www.macro, the letter N, cheese.com, and it's on all the major podcast networks. But in the short term, we need your help because we need to change this economy so that it works for all of us. And with that, have a great night, everybody. I'm out.